We're going live.
All.
Next might be first. No one from them.
I'd like to call the public hearing to present the school budget, student code of conduct, and school safety plan, and the regular meeting to order at 5:37.
Keith Gordon,
Yes, ma'am.
Max Chloe,
Here.
Tim Hand.
Yes.
Michelle Kelly. Here. Jamie Wilson. Here. John Dusendorf.
Here.
Max Tarvis.
Here. Could we stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone scheduled to address the board. We get out to here, anybody like to speak?
We've got several questions around the budget and some statements. So I don't know if you want us to wait until Dr. Schmidt and Aaron have presented the budget, or if you would like us to. Yeah, I think we'd kind of like to wait until.
You guys have a problem with them?
Yeah. Yeah.
the budget.
All right, we'll go there.
Thank you.
Presentations to the board, we have Dave Hagstrom from Angelica, he is representing the Angelica Town Library. Hi, Dave. Ready?
You brought your legal representation today. You did. Thanks. Yeah.
Everybody's interested.
Thank you.
I don't know. Here we are again. Been there, done that. Well, I'm just gonna read to you, what, was in the, Booster News regarding the, Angelica Library, budget situation. And, it says the Board of Trustees of the Angelica Free Library on January 21st and adopted an operating budget for 2025 of $63,000. This amount is an increase of $1,000 over the final budget figure for the previous year. The spending plan includes the property tax levy of $57,000, an increase also of $1,000 from 2024. The annual Genesee Valley School District ballot in May will include a library tax levy proposition. Library budget allocations include books and other materials, $3,700, wages and employee benefits, $31,741, janitorial service and supplies, $1,900, staff, $4,030, utilities, $3,000, library supplies, $900, building insurance, $2,250, building maintenance, $2,000, security, $425. Programs, $3,500, equipment, $800, technical services, $4,750, accounting services, $3,480, miscellaneous, $380, and contingency, $144, and that adds up to $63,000, the annual budget for the library. And that is what will be on the ballot is the $57,000, because that's the tax levy. So are there any questions on any of that? Pretty straightforward. And then down at the bottom here, this is some information that I'm going to just present, and we'll go with that. It's titled "Libraries Will Be Devastated by Loss of Funding." There's deep concern over the federal government's decision to eliminate funding for the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS. This action will have a direct and devastating impact on libraries across the country, including our own here in Angelica. The elimination of IMLS will slash the state library's operating budget by $8.1 million, severely limiting its ability to offer the resources and support that public libraries depend on. These funds employ 55 of the 87 positions at the New York State Library. Your local libraries depend on the state library for a myriad of resources, such as databases, braille and talking books, research services, cultural and educational programming, summer reading programs, grant management, and legal support. Public libraries are cornerstones of education, equity, and opportunity. They are places where people of all ages can explore, learn, and grow. The loss of IMLS jeopardizes that mission and risks further marginalizing the rural and underserved communities that benefit most from our services. Be sure to say yes to the local library funding proposition in the May 20 school budget vote. Contact your representatives at both the state and federal levels to urge them to support library funding. Both the American Library Association and the New York Library Association have direct links on their websites to email representatives and telephone scripts for calling. This is the most impactful thing you can do to support the library. Thank you.
Thank you. In your packet, there's a letter from the Belmont Library, Moses that sent to us. That seems 2% budget increase, and you can see in the packet that she got explained. Same thing that Dave was explaining to us. The issue that they're coming with the libraries, so. Question about Belmont. Aaron Ostrander and Dr. Brian Schmidt will present the 2025-26 school year budget.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Aaron. Kind of highlight and go through the process that we use to get to the point that we're at. And so every year we set budget goals. We want to try to maximize our opportunities for students, maintain our current staff, comply with the parameters of our New York State maximum allowable tax levy, which is the tax cap, try to maintain our current extracurricular offerings, support professional development, and provide a foundation for future budgets. So as we go through this process, please, we want to also maintain our focus on our district goals and state performance, assess all current staffing and programs, and assess all current professional development. We've gone through since last fall and really going to have those conversations. So included in this budget is a number of retirees who are listed there. A lot of veteran people that we'll be losing this year. So what's also included in the budget is our contractual increases, our salaries, our benefits, additional kindergarten teacher due to the increased number of kindergarten students that we're projecting at this time. Special education classrooms. So we're increasing the number of student districts again this year. And then again, that generates additional revenue for our district. And this year we have 3 students who qualified for the New Visions program. So we're excited about that to support them in this budget to go to New Visions. So as far as the reductions in the budget, this year we have 4 teachers. 1 is due to retirement. The 3 that will be impacted by this. 1 teacher assistant. We have our summer days we're reducing the amount of summer days that we're allocating for staff. We have a new visually impaired contract that we've used the last few years that we will be removing. And then we have a staff member who will be replacing and taking that role on for us. And then the Fun in the Jungle and the after school programs will be funded by parents. They will also be run by another organization called Help Kids. And so, sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get into the specifics and the financials. Here's what we're projecting from the state. This is the foundation aid. For 24-25, we received, just under $9 million. We're projecting a 3% increase. This is a challenge. We don't have the finalized numbers from the state yet. They're still in negotiations, so you know, this is our best guess at this point, so we're still waiting for those finalized numbers, but we are hopeful that we will receive the full 3%. Tax levy, last year we went out with a 1.5% increase. We are looking to do the same for next year. You know, it's very minimal, just over $47,000 year to year, so that's what we're looking at for our tax levy. The three-part budget, this kind of just breaks our budget into three categories: the administrative, the program, and the capital. I'm not going to read all those numbers to you, but you can see our proposed budget from last year to this year, or this year to next year, excuse me. So we're looking at a 2.35% increase, which is just over a $500,000 increase. And the largest part of that is our contractual increases. Admin, we're actually looking at a slight decrease. Program, again, that's a 3% increase, and that is the majority of our contractual increases for our instructional side. And then capital is just a very slight increase in our capital project budget. Here's our estimated revenues. Again, I just have it broken out into different groups. Our general aid, that is our aid coming from the state directly. Again, it's just over $300,000. That includes other increases, not just our foundation aid. So that's the difference in that number. We are looking at a slight increase in our transportation aid next year. So that brings it up a little higher than what I just went over previously. Community schools, that is flatline. We get the same amount every year from the state at $100,000. BOCE's aid, that is going to decrease a little bit, and that is a direct relation as to what expenses we do through BOCE's. So those went down a little bit and we receive a little bit less aid. Other revenues, this is our special ed. Excuse me. Special ed revenues we're looking to increase the tuition a little bit. So that is the majority of that increase. And then our reserves, we are taking a little bit less out of our reserves this year, and that is due to our debt reserve ending. Okay, here it kind of goes through our reserves, that number that I just went through, our fund balance. This is the appropriated fund balance. That is remaining the same. That reserve will be ending. So that's the decrease there. Transportation reserve, that is the money that we'll be using to purchase a new bus. Retirement reserve will stay the same. And the unemployment reserve will stay the same as well. So those are just funds that we use to help balance our budget. Here's just a snapshot of where our reserves come from, or where our revenues come from. Majority of it is from the state. Our tax levy is the real property tax, the appropriated fund balance, and then all the other categories. So here's the expenditure side of things. Slight increase in the general support side of things. Instruction is up just over $100,000. Transportation is $40,000. Employee benefits, this is largely in our health insurance costs. Those went up over $200,000. And that includes some of the retirement benefits as well. That percentage went up at the state level. So those are the increases in that category. Their debt service went up $1,000. Again, here's a snapshot. Majority of our expenses are instruction with benefits. So again, here is just the budget summary, 2.35% increase from this year's budget to next year's. Our tax levy is at a 1.5% increase, $47,000 increase. So if the budget does not get passed, this is just informational. The tax levy will be a 0% increase, so we will need to decrease the budget by the additional $47,000. Some of the expenses that will additional cuts that we'll need to make are the capital outlay project, some equipment, student supplies, and salary increases for the confidential managerial employees. Those are all considered contingent expenses by the state. So those are what will need to be removed. So here is what is on the propositions for the public to vote on. The 72 passenger school bus, the amount is not to exceed the 174. $174,000, and that will be taken directly out of our transportation reserve, so that's zero budget impact. The libraries, as Dave just went through over, the Angelica Library are requesting $57,000. And the Belmont is $59,364, with a total combined increase of just over $2,000. Board of Education, we currently have 2 open seats with 3 candidates. So the open seats are Buddy Gordon and Max Galuli, and Sean Kelly is also running for a seat. So those will be the 3 options to vote on. 2 members, 2 of those will get a seat on the board. The vote details, the budget vote is Tuesday, May 20th, and it's from noon to 8 p.m. Belmont residents vote in the GBCS pool vestibule. Angelica is the Angelica Grange. And the board meeting will follow to accept the votes. All right, so now I will open it up for questions.
I just have some direct questions. The budget talked about 4 teachers. It doesn't mention aides that are being let go.
It doesn't mention aides because the aides that will be let go are all long-term subs. They are annual appointments, so I don't see those as a reduction.
And what about the 2 mental health service providers?
Yeah, so those were grant funded. Those are not a direct impact of this budget.
Both of those grants expired.
It's 1 grant and it's not expired at this time.
I can't hear, I'm sorry.
It's just 1 grant and it's not expired at this time, no.
And where is that money being reappropriated if we're letting go of the mental health services and the grants not expired?
We have until September to expend the funds. So we just had a resignation, so we haven't determined what the remaining funds were used.
So we have 3 mental health.
Out of that grant, we have 2 mental health positions, plus an intern. The intern is included in the budget for next year from the grant.
Mhm.
We have not decided what those other 2 positions are because of staffing changes. That just came about in the last day, so.
And then you explained why the BOCES age was down. Is there a way, like, could we be a little bit more proactive about the things that we're sending through BOCES to get more aid back? And like really take a look at some of the things that we.
Yeah, I mean, we always try. It could be something as simple as we didn't run as many trips through the coaster, you know, something like that. I don't know off the top of my head what is directly causing that. We just had spent a little less than both these expenditures, but we always do try to look at that and make sure that we're maximizing that. to the-
And I think our one changed as well, and had an impact on.
Yes, that did decrease a little bit, so our BOCES aid percentage did go down. So that is another aspect of that.
I might actually, with a newer staff, I know I fill out BOCES closer paperwork a lot for things that I'm doing. I might suggest a campaign like, hey, when you're doing something or planning something, let's look at the things that we're looking at doing. Like, I do think an education piece to new staff members and BOCES closer and what you can do and how we can better grab that, I think might also be helpful. Just from somebody who I know who fills out the paperwork's not hard. You're gonna spend a little bit of time, maybe an hour or 2, but in the end result, if we can get some things maybe more funded through the BOCES closers and get some of those money back, I think that we could probably do a better job there. And then, how much is in our unrestricted reserves?
Unrestricted, it is just over 1.2 million.
And what is the purpose of an unrestricted?
So that's basically like a savings account. So if there was an emergency situation, I'll go back to COVID, for instance, where the state was saying, you know, we're not gonna give you any funds. That was a potential. So then what do we do to keep you guys on payroll? If the state's not coming, they freeze that. We would dip into that excess fund balance. I think you should always carry some extra funding. I get where slightly over the 4% that is mandated by the state. I don't think we're over it by much, you know, we're 5.26%. You look at other districts and how many of them are in double digits, so I don't think we are carrying an excess amount of those savings funds. I think it's appropriate, and I think they would go very, very quickly in an emergency situation.
So Erin, I may be wrong, but I think I'm wrong a lot. I think in the last meeting, you projected in the budget when we were talking, or when you were talking, you projected like a 1% increase in the foundation aid, and in this, it says a 3% increase. Is that the same?
Yeah, so there's two budgets that come out from the state. One is the executive budget and that has a 2% increase in it. So we are hoping for the additional 1% from the 2%, so that gets gets you to the 3%. So that is what they are proposing at both levels of the state, so we are hopeful that we will get that.
That makes more sense, cause I thought somewhere in there that I thought that there were, yeah,
Yeah, we were just talking about an additional.
Yeah.
From the 2%.
that makes sense. Okay, thank you. Keep going. All right, so I have some questions and I guess some things that I'm gonna look at my paper and I'm gonna do my best to look at you guys as well. So I'm gonna start with the board in general. So according to the letter that was signed by the Board of Education and published in the newsletter and in the proposed budget packet, in the second paragraph, it states that the budget maintains academic programs. Can you verify that that statement is true, that we're maintaining our academic programs or any of them going away in the budget?
I'll start off here after the last meeting. The board's responsibility and role responsibility is to budget the money. Our responsibility is not to decide who gets cut, what gets cut, where it gets cut. That is, when we have to do a reduction, the school, I say, has to do a reduction. That is brought from teachers, staff, administrators. They collaborate together, bring it to the board with the best suggestion to manage the budget. I don't work here, none of the board members work here. We hear your concerns, we understand your concerns. But it comes down from a level from teachers, staff, to administration, to us. For me to sit here and say that this job is not justified and we should get rid of it would be completely wrong of me, and I won't do that. So after last meeting, I did take a little bit of offense, and I think the board did too, that it was kind of put on our shoulders that we were making these choices. That's not our role or responsibility to make these choices. If I could, I'd love to keep everybody, and I would tell the administration we're not cutting anybody. But there is a budget number we have to get to. And we rely on our experts that we hire that work with you to make these decisions. So when you're asking me about is some of the academics going away? Truthfully, I can't answer that 100% because that's not my job or my role. I don't want to see any academics go away, and I don't think any board member does. I think the idea of it is we have to rely on our administration and trust their decision. And in the past, and I hope it continues, I believe that the administration has reached out to the faculty and staff. If I'm wrong, you can correct me on that, to see what possibilities there are to save the budget. I don't know. I can't answer that. That's the assumption that this board gets. So as far as the board being involved in direct cuts and getting rid of this, I really don't like that assumption that the board itself is the one making that choice. We are going on the recommendation of the administration, the superintendent, and I don't want to throw them under the bus by any means. I'm not doing that. That we all work as a team. But like I said, once again, none of us work here at the school. And I don't know, I couldn't even tell you what you do all the time. I mean, that's none of my business, you know what I'm saying? My business is to help manage the money for the taxpayers, the stakeholders, and keep our kids educated. That's why I ran for board, that's why I'm on board, and that's why I want to continue doing that. So if you want to direct them questions to me, you can, but I'm going to give you the same answer. I'd rather have you direct them to Dr. Schmidt or Aaron.
I guess part of what I'm getting at is that, the letter itself, the letters in the budget packet and in the newsletter are signed by the Board of Education. So when I'm looking at those statements, and to me, they don't appear to be true statements. That's why when it's signed by the Board of Education, I go to the Board of Education with the people whose names are on those letters. And that's what I'm looking at, are those pieces that are specifically the letter that has all of your names on them.
Correct, and I understand where you're coming from with that, and to go back on that. The letters state that we're not cutting the academics, I'm not saying we're not cutting all academics, I'm stating the board is in agreement on them letters of what was proposed to us from the administration, I guess. I don't know any other way to. I mean, I don't like signing things that I don't agree with or know about, but I take trust in our staff, our administration, our faculty to make them decisions, and typically, when it's brought to the board, they will go with it.
Okay,
I think a lot of that was the wording. It says maintain. And then when community hears about cuts, that maintain becomes the question.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to to answer that, if you would like to.
Sure, no, I mean, the overall majority of our academic programs are intact. And without going further into detail, at the request of staff members, I'm not gonna say more than that. Are there reductions in staff? Yes. Will it have an impact on kids? Yes. When we write the letter that goes out at that point, when that letter was published, because it has to be 6 weeks in advance of the final decision, at that point, we still didn't have the revenues. We believed that all programming was going. So I felt comfortable sending that letter on behalf of the board.
So what programs are being cut?
At the request of staff, I'm not gonna respond to that.
Seriously?
yeah.
Where are we supposed to get this information?
So, and again, because of the request of our staff members that we're going through. What I will say to you is there is nothing that is a core program that is mandated by New York State that is being cut.
Well, and if I might too, I would just wanna add that I know, based on conversations, that the administration at the school has worked very hard and had a lot of communication with us to make sure that if there was anything that was going to not be able to be funded within the budget, that we tried to be able to offer some kind of alternative to still allow there to be that opportunity for kids and families. I'm certainly not suggesting that's for everything, but I wholeheartedly believe that that was a very thoughtful process on behalf of the administration and on behalf of this board. No one likes to see that there has to be cuts of any kind, and there was a lot of, conversations and by administration and that, with us ultimately, that how can we still offer these things, make sure that kids still have these opportunities. So I'm hopeful that at least in some of those areas that kids will still have those opportunities to participate in things. It just might not look exactly the same way as they have this year.
Well, and in speaking to that
That's a fair point.
and revenue, has the board discussed bringing back tuition for out-of-district students? Because, I mean, the word's out there, we have a great facility. And you get more and more, the brother comes and then the sister comes, and that was an actual thing. And that word gets out there, then we get more, so we're providing for more kids. Has that been discussed to bring tuition back for our out-of-district reg-I kids?
Yes, the board has discussed it many times, we've talked with Dr. Schmidt and Aaron to figure out numbers, that is a big agenda for our retreat, to figure out what other ways to capitalize on saving money here at GB.
Because it's becoming it's becoming a thing. Parents love this building, kids love coming here, they talk to other kids that go to other schools, and it's getting bigger.
And
It really is.
And parents, the rumor had gotten out, I don't know just how rumors are here in Angelica Belmont, the rumors, got out that we were discussing tuition and stuff. And I've had numerous parents come up and they actually said that, I understand there might be tuition, but I still want to be involved because the school is so great. I certainly don't like the idea of tuition because I want every kid, but on the other hand, we have to.
Well, we had tuition,
We did.
then it went
We
away,
did.
And I'm same with you. I've had parents tell me I would pay to have my kids go there because it's,
Right.
you know, we do a lot.
I
We do a
don't
lot.
think it's 100% of the, families, but I think it's a high percentage that will still pay an amount to have their kids come here.
Well, it's truly a benefit,
It
and I
is,
think
it is.
if you're willing to do that, then you should pay.
That rate is established at the July board meeting, so that's where you would see that.
And one of the other areas, sorry. The other areas is that looking at pre-K and pre-kindergarten and trying to maximize the amount of aid that we can get for pre-kindergarten students. So conversations of communications going on already around, if you are an out of district pre-kindergarten student, you will not know until August 1st whether or not your spot is secured, because if we give and we always have traditionally try to leave a couple of spots. This is the first year, correct me if I'm wrong, right? So we ever had to have a lottery system where we had an overflow of pre-kindergarten students. So there's traditionally been either short of 18 or 18 with a combination of GB kids and out of district kids, which are typically STEM kids. To be honest, those are typically our out of district kids are from STEM. But for out of district kids, STEM kids, we don't get any aid. It reduces the amount of money that we get for pre-K funding. So that's one of those things the board is small and kids that are not STEM kids.
And it's a tough decision that the board had talked about with tuition and especially when it came to the pre-K 3. We do have staff members that utilize that and they're not district payers. But on the other hand, and this is my belief, and I speak from the heart, and I always will, that if you're a district taxpayer, your kid should be allowed to come here and not be put on the lottery list.
Agreed.
Yeah, you know, I'll do anything for our staff, but on the other hand, you're a district taxpayer, you're in the district, that kid's gonna grow up here for the most part of their whole life, so I don't wanna see a pre-K 3 or a PK 4 kid get put out because a non-district kid's coming here. So that was from mine, and I think, you know, the majority of the board was on the same page as me.
Well, community reiterates that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So when you say those rates are set at like the July meeting, is that for like the school year coming up, like would that impact? So if
Yes.
people decided not to come, that would impact next school year.
Yes.
Okay, I actually have some student statements that I have been asked to share with you. So I think I'm gonna just pass them out to board members because I have copies, so then I don't have to read the entire statement. But you'll have it if you wanna go back and read over it, but I have told them that I would share their statements, and I think student voices are important and I want you to hear them. Whether you agree or disagree, I think you'll probably be pretty proud of how they express themselves. I know I am. So I'm Kristen Buholtz, for those of you who don't know me. I've taught here since 2001. The first one that I'm gonna read from, if you're following along with me, says at the top, I'm reading this letter on behalf of Madison Ferrar. And Madison is a senior this year. Click on that in a minute. And I'm not gonna read the whole statement again, but I'm gonna just jump down that first paragraph to where it says throughout my years enrolled at GB. You can kind of find that. I've seen improvements and people have joined the GB staff that have made a difference in students' academic lives and students' mental health. Therefore, the programs and teachers that are being cut seem unjustified to not only staff members, but the students as well. I understand that this board wants to make our school a better environment for students. However, I've only heard things for next year to come that have brought me and others disappointment. I'm disappointed that the students will not have the same kind of outlets next year that I had for all my years at GB. For instance, my mother passed away in August, right before my senior year. I started to seek help with my mental health because it took a toll on my well-being and was affecting my academics. However, trying to find a good therapist that my insurance would cover became a struggle. I decided to meet with Ms. Capoza every Friday for the past school year. And I can say it truly has made a positive impact on my mental health. I appreciate that I have this outlet during this time of grief. Ms. Capoza, among others, makes a positive impact on student lives. However, there's a particular individual that is part of the GB staff that I want to focus on today. This individual is one that I felt safe and comfortable to open up to as well. That staff member is one of many staff members that make a difference within our school community. Mr. Al is the only male counselor within our school. He does not only show up for students during his work hours, but he also shows up for us on the weekends when he hosts open gyms. Some may see that as a small gesture, however, that small gesture makes a meaningful impact on students. Mr. Al does not have to host these open gyms, however, he still does for his students. That is one of many traits that are tremendous at a school for the benefit of the students, especially for their mental health. As a student, I can firmly say your mental health is just as important as your academics. Mr. Al always gives his students a free and safe space to speak on their struggles, especially for the male students. The boys I know are less likely to open up to a female counselor, however, they made strong connections with Mr. Al. I also want to point out the fact he is the only staff member of color. There are different students that are of color as well enrolled at Genesee Valley. I, for one, am half Pakistani, which many can clearly see simply by my skin. As we all know, our community is not as diverse as others are, which can become a struggle for students when they're being called names or picked on because of their ethnicity. Mr. Al gives these students a role model that is of color, therefore making kids of color more comfortable going to him about this kind of hurt. Mr. Al truly is a staff member who cares about his students and consistently shows this. We all know Mr. Al is here on a grant, and I understand there are others also here on grants. However, that does not change the fact that their absences next year will be a major loss for the students at Genesee Valley, as well as other staff members and programs. The budget does not only cut the program itself off, but it also cuts off outlets for students. Therefore, these cuts of both staff and programs will be devastating for not only the staff members, but the students as well. Thus, I truly hope the board can find a way to resolve these losses for GB students because I have benefited from these opportunities and staff members I have had in my school career. I am deeply disappointed that the younger students will miss out on these staff members and all that they bring to our community. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Madison Turner. Is it okay if I read part of the next one as well?
Why, of course.
Okay. So I'm gonna jump down. The next one is written and shared by Sienna Stocking, who's also a senior this year. I'm gonna just jump down to the second paragraph. For many students, school can be a daunting place. The pressures of academics, social dynamics, and personal challenges can weigh heavily on their young shoulders. Mr. Al stands as a steadfast pillar of support, offering a compassionate ear and a warm smile. He is the person students turn to when they feel overwhelmed or lost, providing guidance and encouragement during their darkest moments. The stories of students who have found solace in his presence are countless students who once felt isolated, afraid, or misunderstood have blossomed under Mr. Al's care. His unwavering belief in their potential helps them to see the light within themselves, igniting a spark of hope when they need it most. One of the most powerful gifts Mr. Al has given to our school community is the creation of a prayer room for our foreign exchange students. Imagine being in a new country far from home, where everything feels unfamiliar. For these students, this room is not just a space for prayer, it is a sanctuary where they can connect with their faith and find solace amidst the chaos of their new environment. Mr. Al has transformed what could be a lonely experience into one of belonging. He has shown these students that their beliefs matter, that their identities cherished, and that they're part of a community that embraces diversity. This room stands as a testament to his commitment to fostering understanding, compassion, and respect among all students, regardless of ability to create a safe space within our school. In today's world where bullying and discrimination can cast long shadows over young lives, his efforts to cultivate an atmosphere of safety are nothing short of heroic. He tirelessly advocates for students who may feel marginalized, ensuring that every voice is heard and every heart is cared for. The sense of security he instills allows students to flourish academically and personally, free from the burdens of fear and anxiety. His presence reassures them that they are not alone, that they have someone in their corner who genuinely cares about their well-being. But Mr. Al's impact reaches far beyond the walls of his office or the prayer room. He brings people together, fostering connections among students who may otherwise never cross paths. He encourages collaboration, camaraderie, and mutual support, creating a community where friendships can blossom and students can thrive together. In a world that often feels divided, Mr. Al serves as a reminder of the beauty of unity and the strength that comes from embracing our differences. As we consider the future of our school, we must recognize the irreplaceable role Mr. Al plays in shaping the lives of our students. His kindness, compassion, and unwavering dedication have left an indelible mark on their hearts. Let us not forget the countless stories of transformation that have taken place because of his presence. Stories of students who found their voices, discovered their strengths, and learned to believe in themselves. And I think the same can be said for other staff who are also have already been told that they will not have jobs next year. So just with those sentiments, I just wanted to see if there is a way to share any more specifics about what is being cut. You know, you did a great job explaining the budget, but we don't exactly know what all of those lines mean. If there are programs, extracurricular programs or other interventions that are slated for reductions, what are they? You shared the total number, but if you can get more specific, I think
I can respond to that.
it's fair to.
So that the Bureau of Justice grant that we were one of 33 districts nationwide to receive ends in September. And so unless we were to absorb those positions into the budget and have them become staff members, we have to cut those positions. So that's one of the places that we're talking about programs that are going.
Thank you.
Very impressed. I'm very impressed with these kids. That's very well written, both of them.
Yeah, I agree.
Only thing I have to say to them, and I'm glad that they speak up and I understand exactly where they're coming from. It's a hard decision for the board when it was brought to the board from the administration of what's going on, but when a grant runs out, in the past, we seem to, and I've been on the board for 10 years, we seem to sometimes carry that position over into the budget. And I think now the board is realizing that is not the proper way to do business. That's what has put us in the spot is retaining grant funded positions in our budget. None of us want to get rid of that, and I think the board has spoken to the administration, and from now on, when the grant will be written, there's going to be an explanation to whoever's hired for that immediately. That when the grant is out, the job is over. I understand it's all coming with it, and I never really met Mr. Al myself. I talked to him in the hall. He was an excellent guy. I've never heard nothing but great praises about him. Myself and Max were both upset, understanding that grant ran out.
Yeah.
And like I go back again, that's an administration call. Besides the fact that the grant has run out, and I don't think the board, this current board, and we'll add that to the budget just for the situation that we're in from the past grants being carried on.
It's just add to that is nothing you like to see. I mean, my kids, Jamie's kids, Michelle's kids, probably your grandkids, a lot of the people in here with kids. I mean, I know my kids love Mr. Al. See him. I have my open gym right after his on Sunday, and I see him there every weekend. I think the one positive I can say is that we're better for the years that we had them than if we never had them in the first place, but. It's a tough position, I get it, and like Buddy said, I think they wrote it very well. Glad they were- Okay.
Thank you.
So if we get that extra 1%, how much would that be?
Approximately, go ahead.
Sorry.
Approximately $80,000.
Yeah,
Pardon?
it's $86,000.
And what's that intended to be used for, if we get it?
That's already included in the
That's
budget.
already included.
If we don't, we have a $6,000 gap. I do have a couple more follow-up questions, if that's okay. So. Thinking about STEAM, hands-on learning, social emotional learning, there's a lot of talk about those programs. How does the budget kind of line up with supporting and maintaining those programs? I think that's a big question, but.
Maintains Donna's position, who oversees the Innovation Center, which allows her release time to make sure the equipment that we've invested in is maintained and used and scheduled. That is still a part of the STEAM program. Is it, that once was? No, but it is still included in the budget.
And what about the SEL, the social emotional learning? That we're just hearing a whole lot about that, and especially the younger elementary side of life.
Yeah, so the New York State has SEL standards, as you know, we're supposed to be finalizing our curriculum maps that address the SEL standards and where they're going to be addressed in the grade levels. So again, the Bureau of Justice grant was an additional grant. We're also in the process of applying for what's called a boost grant, which will be extracurricular opportunities for students grades 7 through 12. We will know in September if we receive that grant. That would expand and maintain some, not only of the opportunities that we've been continuing to host, but also expand work opportunities for students in the community. So we would be partnering with area businesses for them to take on interns and students to be paid to do internships in the local community, as well as it would fund the summer drama production and expand clubs based upon student interests. So we are in the process of completing that grant now, and we're optimistic. That's a 5-year grant at $250,000 a year. That comes with a project coordinator. Our hope was that Mr. Al's position would be transferring into the project director role for that grant, but that's not going to happen at this point. But we will have to, if we are successful with that grant, we have to get a project director that would be designed to coordinate many of the things you're talking about. So again, the opportunities that we've had with STEAM in the past, from robotics, which really has been replaced with our future farmers. Ms. Wright's doing a great job with that program, and then expanding opportunities for the kids to, I know Ms. Mapes is here and she does the sewing club. That's a part of the past for our students. And so again, looking at those opportunities for secondary kids to continue to try to expand those opportunities.
Thank you. One last question I have. Has an impact assessment been conducted to just understand how these cuts will affect student outcomes and staff as well? I know for me, no one has talked to me about how cutting the high school art teaching position is gonna affect what I do, and I'm sure it will in some ways. So how do we know how this is all gonna impact teachers, but also students and what classes we can offer?
So we are finalizing the schedule. As we speak, taking a close look at what those courses will be offered next year. And I'm confident that Mrs. Donovan will be meeting with you to talk with them. This is Preston as well. I was in Mrs. Preston's office today. She's still meeting with students, finalizing their course selections. And so once we have those preliminary numbers for the courses, Mrs. Donovan, Mrs. Preston will get together and include the teachers case by case as to what courses will be offered for next year. So until that process doesn't happen, you really can't have an impact on the program, have an understanding. Yes, there will be reductions in the number of sections of yoga, for example, next year. That's a prediction from me, not from Mrs. Donlin, but given that you will be teaching additional classes, that would be a natural impact. So at least section sizes condensed and or less sections beyond.
So I guess following up on that, kids are going and they're meeting with Mrs. Preston and requesting courses. They're requesting courses that we know are not going to be offered. So what's going to happen? Because we have to have a certain amount of kids in classes, which I understand. We've talked about this in a lot in years past. You have to have that minimum amount of students in a course in order for a course to run. Well, students are choosing courses that we know are not going to be offered.
So my understanding is that as Mrs. Preston allows students to make their selections, there are multiple options that they are selecting. And so again, they over-select the number of courses that will be available. So that if there is a possibility those courses don't happen. That's one avenue. The other avenue is we always have the first couple of weeks of school, last week of August, for students to adjust their schedules. And so when they run schedules, they will take a look at what are the gaps as a function, some as a function of courses that weren't offered. And so they'll reach out to those students and say, we have opportunities in these areas instead of courses for electives. That's usually what the schedule change process is. You know, put you on the spot, but do you want to add anything to that? If I spoke out anything?
No. And those numbers, like we talked about last year, those initial numbers that teachers received are going to be coming out within that 2-week period, like we talked about last year, where teachers know what those sections of electives are. So there might be changes in that 2-week period. So that's also going to happen. So that's another step where we finalize those schedules that will hopefully allow for those changes, Ken.
Yeah, I guess I'm not getting it out there correctly and I apologize, but if I am somebody who loves the arts and so I'm gonna take all of Mrs. Buholt's electives because I have a really great connection with Mrs. Buholt hypothetically if she's teaching high school. I'm gonna select when I go in with Mrs. Preston, I'm gonna select as many with Mrs. Buholt as I possibly can. Well, Mrs. Buholt isn't going to be here. So all of the courses, I know, I'm hypothetically speaking. So now all the courses that I've selected are no longer offered. I don't have a plan B because my plan A, B, C, D, and E was all in one basket. I guess is where I'm. Does that make any sense?
I understand where you're coming from. Again, we still have students every year who select courses that don't run based upon a number of reasons. We have a staff change if we have not enough numbers to run those courses. So it is a process that we have on an annual basis. And I understand all of us want the best offerings for our kids and for our kids to be in classes that they're engaged with, that they love, they're excited about. And yes, there will be some reductions in some of those classes. And again, my assumption, and Donald will facilitate this, is that the classes that have the greatest amount of interest will absolutely run. And then she'll work with our staff to make sure that if there are opportunities to pick up another section or an elective somewhere, that we will try to facilitate that to the best of our ability for our kids. That's the way it's always been, and I don't see that changing in any time in the future.
Are we still operating with the minimum student requirement in the section?
My knowledge is.
I'm a Leslie Hagstrom and my kids, 3 of my kids graduated here. It was not a pleasant time. Times have changed. And I'm so proud of Genesee Valley School as it is now. And I have a granddaughter who's in her 2nd year of college. And because of the year's worth of credit she got while she attended here, she only has 1 more year to finish her bachelor's. That's wonderful. And I'm proud of her and I'm proud of the school for offering that. I have a little concern with Mr. Duttweiler's retirement that those college classes will still be offered. I also want to note that because of the changes in Genesee Valley, my son and his wife have moved down, and the fact that there's a 3 pre-K program. So those kids are in pre-K and kindergarten and my son is substituting here and they're very happy with everything that's going on. I'm just, worried, are we going to continue to have the same opportunities for college credit classes for kids that we have had?
Yes.
Are they going to have to pay more?
There is a possibility that they will have to pay more, and that's not a function of the district. I was working with Mr. Mead today, having to catch the news on a meeting with JCC, one of our community colleges. So they have some of the community colleges are instituting fees So one of the assessments that the district will have to make is whether they can absorb the cost of those fees for those students like we have in the past, or whether they'll get passed on to parents. There is also a new BOCES COSER that is basically combining all of the communities, colleges, universities, courses together to try to make, basically to generate BOCES aid on the cost of those fees for those programs. So this is this next school year will be the first year that happens. Genesee Valley has signed up to be a founding partner in that COSER. So we are optimistic that at a minimum, the fees that we've paid in the past will generate some aid, so on an annual basis, that cost will be minimized. Where in the past, the money was paid and it just came out of the general budget.
I'm disappointed that the building program is being discontinued. I think that there are, we don't need to just look at the children who really can benefit from college classes. We need to also focus on kids for whom the 4 years in high school here are going to be the only actual education they're going to get beyond on-the-job training. And that met a need. Now, I understand there's building programs at BOCES. What is the difference? Is there a limit to the number of kids that can participate? Will they be able to move to a BOCES program?
So the difference is we offered it at an earlier age. So
Pardon?
we offered it at an earlier age.
Got it.
So students in grades 9 and 10 had a taste of the trades here, then could make a decision about which BOCES program they wanted to go to. And they were also able to offer some community service and so I can tell you, none of us want to see that program go. We're very proud of the work of that program and absolutely we're not happy about it. Unfortunately, when you're in these situations, you know, you have to make some difficult decisions.
The other question is, I was a little shocked when you mentioned that the after-school and summer programs are going to require the parents to pay for those programs. That wasn't in here anywhere that I could see. That's pretty significant. What are we talking about here? We have poor people and an absolute paucity of daycare and summer childcare opportunities. So what's going on?
So we are going to partner or contract with Healthy Kids New York. And there will be an opportunity for families to hopefully take advantage of resources in the community through to help offset the cost of the program. But
What's that
again,
mean?
so basically there is an opportunity. Sean, I'm going to turn to you if I can do it. She's going to be the expert on this. There'll be an application process for those who make under a certain threshold, where they can apply for a subsidy to try to help offset the cost. Healthy Kids New York's work operates in Cuba currently. They work across the state. They're well versed in how to help and facilitate family members to try to go through this process. And so the reality was when the board looked at the budget, we looked at the budget. It was an area that they said that we could no longer sustain the cost of.
So what are we talking about it costing?
Total of about $150,000.
No, each
Oh,
child.
it depends on the income. Depends really on the income of the family.
Is there a
What's the
standard
range?
tuition?
Yeah, I don't have it memorized, to be perfectly honest with you. Darren, do you remember from the forums?
I don't,
We had the,
You
I
got,
want
no,
to
Sarah?
say it was like.
Not off the top of my
No, it's not
head.
my head. I want to say it was about $100 a week, so it's right around between $350 and $400 a month.
Wow.
I love how you're gonna do.
And again, and to that point, Michelle, it depends, that's like full-time, 5 days a week. And they are able to offer before care programming and after school programming, but we're only able to offer after school programming. And then our summer enrichment program, as far as our academic enrichment and our special education programs are still going. Those are still district funded. They're in the budget. It is the program beyond that, our Fun on the Juggle program, which was in essence, day camp from July, after the 4th of July through the second week of August. That's what's going to be paid to participate.
So to just kind of add to what Brian said, so the income threshold for the daycare subsidies in order to be able to apply for assistance for a family of 4 is $107,000. I don't work for the Department of Social Services anymore, so I certainly can't speak on behalf of them. But that was something that I had conversations with my past colleagues about when we were talking about not wanting to lose that, but how can we come up with a way to still offer the opportunity to families to have that option.
So if you're earning family 4 has $107,000 coming in and you have 2 children, you're gonna have to pay for.
You can apply to the Department of Social Services for a daycare subsidy to see if you would qualify. Essentially, that's the threshold, $101,000. I can't speak to the monies and the things that they might have available because that income threshold was significantly raised in the last year or so. Maybe it was 2 budget years ago, I can't recall, but essentially.
And is it nothing or a lot? Or is there
My understanding was just.
a graded step system?
So I don't know about that. I think that if you're under that threshold, that you have the possibility to have it at full cost. But I mean, that would be something that someone would have to call the Department of Social Services to inquire about. If you're already receiving any kind of public assistance, temporary assistance, HEAP, then they're going to have a lot of your stuff already on file that could justify that you would qualify for that, and they can tell you what, if anything, that would be available to you to offset the cost of the program.
So with that being said, when's all that information gonna be out there for not only our kids involved in that program, we had a lot of staff involved that need the money as
So
well.
when we received the contract last week, we'll be adopting the contract tonight.
So that'll be in effect this summer.
Yes.
And do you know how parents are gonna be able to find babysitters between now and the end of June? I don't see it yet. Okay,
And were they gonna go with, I mean, somebody I talked with said that they would possibly look at our staff.
That was absolutely something we talked about when we.
And so our staff will know that at some point soon, because we've already lost one.
So
It
since
had
the
to go
contract is
somewhere else.
enacted, then it'd be on their responsibility to communicate and certainly share all the communication around postings, job postings.
Because we have a lot of really good staff in the summer. And we lost a really good aide because she couldn't wait. She goes, I need a summer job. I've got to go somewhere. I got to do something. So that's a concern. So sooner the better, I guess.
Speaking with the different programs that we spoke at, a lot of them said they can't get the help and they welcome staff members.
good.
So that was a benefit for the board when they heard that usually their top choice is staff members that are already in school. It's hard finding babysitters, just like Leslie said, you can't find a babysitter now, more or less, somebody wants to work in the summer, so they have a hard time filling them positions, so. I mean, I can't say 100% that it's just gonna be Genesee Valley, but I'm in my impression I got from them, that it's gonna be, 90%, it's gonna be.
And that's all well and good, as long as it gets out there before people start feeling desperate and leave. That's the thing.
The credit administration, it was a point of emphasis that you wanted to make sure that they would do that.
Good. As soon as you could.
It's important for the board and administration.
Because I will say even, and I know that it's a contractual thing, but we've lost some good aides that have put their time in because they can just make more money somewhere else. They don't want to leave, but they have to leave.
teachers aren't gonna work for minimum wage, so,
Right.
No. And like I said, we agree and.
Yep.
And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, I'm not gonna point fingers, I hear point fingers, but we tried, we were supposed to have this rolled out months ago. Somehow it got dropped, ball got dropped. Work, take responsibility, whoever wants to take responsibility, I'll take responsibility, I really don't care. But it's the bad on us and on our accepted that it didn't get rolled out when we asked it to get rolled out, so.
there was something said earlier in the meeting about aides. When there was a question, I think, about whether we are cutting any aide positions. And I did not understand the answer.
So we are reducing 4 aid positions, but they're not actually in the budget because they were long-term sub positions for this year. So when we budget, like the number of aides that we budgeted for last year are included in the budget this year. However, we had 4 additional aides that we needed to hire on a short-term basis this year, and they're being, in essence, not put into the budget, added in the budget.
There will be no long-term aides.
Correct.
There were specific needs mid-year
Right.
for some kids, so that's why they didn't know how long they were gonna be here. So that's why they're long-term, because we didn't know if they'd need them next year.
And that goes on to the point that, like Aaron said. Savings account, because it's, for some reason. You know, you guys work with special ed, and for some reason we have aides quit. Or we have to have an extra aide coming in because a kid moves into the district, we need that money to bring that aide in. You know, the fact is, you want to call it the way it is right now. If you guys were all part of the budget last year. We were $900 and some thousand in the hole, we had to bring in special ed kids to make the difference. Now, if those special ed kids leave. We're $909,000 in the hole, that $1 million is eaten up like that. So that contingency money that everybody was talking about, is not necessarily a savings account. That is truly, if you're a common sense person, knowing that is my budget, I cannot spend that money just for the fact is, if these special ed kids leave, we're not getting revenue from other districts, we have to use that $1 million to pay that $990,000 left. It's gonna leave us $100,000 or whatever in our reserve.
So we used to rent rooms to BOCES to provide special education services.
Correct.
And BOCES still provides special education services. Correct? But some parents can choose whether they want to send their child here for special ed. That's just our own in-house, in-family.
So every classroom that Gen Valley is a self-contained special education classroom has Genesee Valley students in it.
Okay.
What we've done is we have looked at, let's say, for example, a 611 and 811, a 1211. The additional spaces in that classroom we have tuitioned out to other districts around us. So
Mean adding some other students. who
exactly,
pay
they
for
send their students here, they pay those tuition to us. That's the money that we referenced about generating revenue from tuition and special education.
So we make out better if we run our own special education rather than
100%.
paying BOCES for doing special ed for our kids.
And that's where it goes back to my point, that, you know, other schools, which one school did do that, pulled out to their students because they're gonna start doing it in-house. That's revenue that we don't have anymore, that we have to make up in the budget. So that's why that $1 million is not just $1 million sitting there for the fun of it. I think people got the misunderstanding of that. That $1 million is not, that $1 million already spoken for, really, if something happens.
And I think it's a little bit, is it 1.2 or almost 1.3? That's special education.
Yeah.
And of course, those are agreements that, you know, if for some reason that child moved out of that district or something else, then they ebb and flow. But that had worked out this year.
That conversation is being had with other school districts. They know how we are operating, so they're talking about doing it themselves, which could be another gap for us to try to close next year. We lose 2 or 3 students. If Belfast is sending 2 students here, we're getting revenue. We lose that revenue because they're gonna have their own program. Now you're in that gap as well for next year.
So you don't want to have an 811 class with 6 kids in it. You want to fill that to 8 if you can.
Well, he goes until it's beneficial financially, to hold the class here versus for me to send them somewhere else.
Right.
We don't want to do that to our teachers. We're not trying to do that to our teachers. Sorry, guys. Not me, all right?
I like that you pointed out 811 specifically. Perfect selection. And to respond to Sean's point, every district is in a similar situation because the foundation aids that we're receiving is not keeping up with the cost of inflation, the cost of things. That's just the reality. And so what I would also say to you, I'm not afraid of losing students because we're still having inquiries every day about, I just had one today, I'm trying to get hold of Sarah from another district to have multiple students that are gonna be reaching out to possibly send over here. So, but the challenge of that is when we anticipate those reductions in students, we have to make an assessment. Is it more cost effective for Gen Valley to run this class, even though our kids are in it? Or is it more cost effective to frankly cut the program, cut the staff and to send those students to a BOCES program? So far, we've been able to run those classrooms with Gen Valley kids and generate revenue. And frankly, it's a much better situation for our kids too. When they're not going, they're here, they're our Gen Valley.
And they're spending time in regular classrooms as well.
Depends on the program, so
Yeah.
yes.
I think I'm gonna have to answer to my colleague if I don't ask this question about the high school art position being cut. It's the first time I've heard of this happening since I've started teaching here in 2001, that we won't have that high school art position. So if anyone can speak on why that was eliminated.
I can speak, to it. We took a very close look at all our staff. Took a look at our numbers. Frankly, it was a decision that got based on the merit of the program. I think they did. So we missed that individual. But, and that's one of the reasons why, frankly, we haven't been talking about it at the request of the teachers to not be advertising those names that were being cut. But having said that, yeah, it was absolutely looking at numbers and it was gonna have the least impact on student opportunities. And again, that's not a value judgment about art. It is as we look at our music program has two teachers, we have 3 art teachers, pre-K 12. We had to take a look at it. And again, please hear that clearly. It's not a merit-based or judgment on the discipline of art and or I just want to see this happen. We're really proud of that program and proud of that person. Very much so. Very sad to see it.
I guess like echoing like some of the things that have been said, right, like. I've obviously heard you guys say, right, like these programs that are leaving, like, when we just talked about the building trades and high school art, like, yeah, like we don't want to see it happen. But I just wanted to take some time to share some of the things that I've heard from the students that have been impacted by the building trades program, just because I think it's worth sharing. And obviously I work really close with that program we have as we kind of got the Maple thing going, like without that, like, that would not have happened. And obviously we worked together on the drama, set production and all that stuff. So I've gotten to, share some of those kids and see some of those kids and, we kind of complement each other quite well in the skills that we bring to the table. So I've definitely obviously had numerous kids that I have in 8th grade super excited about what that program does and talk about wanting to take that program next year, or like wishing that the classes were just 40 minutes so they could fit in other electives too. But once the stuff kind of spread around about what wasn't going to be here, I did have several students kind of tell me that they finally found something in the school that they felt like they fit and they belonged in, and they enjoyed coming every day and they looked forward to it. And now that it's not going to be here next year, they're just kind of not sure where they're going to fit and what they're going to do. I did have somebody tell me that program was more than a program. They really felt like it was a place where they were mentored and there was a great role model for them to look up to. So it kind of broke my heart to hear these kids tell me these things. But obviously, coming from a farming background, right, I understand tough decisions have to be made and that kind of sucks. And obviously, when people are involved, I'm sure those decisions are not taken lightly. But I guess I'm just curious because I mean, sometimes it's hard to find those creative solutions to keep things around. So I know like that building trades program was originally created by a grant. So I guess I was just curious what options or other things were considered as these discussions were happening, like about, finding external funding even for like a temporary purpose. Cause right, like, yeah, grants do end and it's not necessarily fair for the district to absorb those costs. But I was just curious if there was any discussion on finding external funding to keep the program going another year or whatever, just kind of curious.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is that's for the boost grant is one that we see developing at and at any point another opportunity comes to fund it, certainly. But the challenging that comes back to if we look at not trying to minimize the impact. I'm very proud of that program. Very proud of the work that we have graduates because of that program. I'm very proud of the teacher and teacher assistant have done to build a culture of family and support that. But yeah, it was again a very tough decision to make, and not one that any of us wanted to make.
Yeah, resonate with what you said, it sucks. It's not something.
And like I said, I'll go back to what I mentioned earlier, as the board moves forward. I believe this board anyway is, we're gonna look for every grant opportunity there is that makes sense. But we also are gonna allow them people to know that who gets hired, that when the grant runs out, the possibility is gone. Because I don't, this happened at least 4 times since I've been on board, where we've lost really good people and community members because we couldn't afford to get a grant right now, and it comes back to, you guys said you're letting go and it shouldn't be placed on the administration or the board that we're letting go. They should be upfront, knowing that, you know, when the grant runs out, we'll do what we can to try to renew it, but on the other hand, when the grant runs out, the job's gone.
I just want to confirm with the already. So those conversations, unfortunately, we've had the opportunity, we've been able to keep them for a couple of years longer, and then budget dictates when we have to make those decisions after the fact.
How many years did we absorb?
One.
4, 5.
No.
5 years.
Hasn't been here that long.
Guaranteed.
Two.
Well,
It was like two.
Yeah, I think.
Because we started it,
Oh.
we started with a grant, I think it actually functioned as a grant program for 1 year with students.
Yeah, I would say 3. 2 or 3.
At least.
I mean, we made a conscious effort to try to keep that in order to the budget.
Again, we had a partner school with that agreement. And so that's what really helped to offset the cost of that, and we unfortunately lost that partner school. And so we tried multiple times for multiple years to gain a new partner school and bring additional students in and revenues in to try to offset the cost of this.
Aaron, can you tell me, how much with the staff cutting the 4 positions, how much is the district saving with that? So what was the effect on the budget?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I can definitely get that to you tomorrow.
Maybe like more than 100, less than 2?
For 4 total positions, I bet it's close to $400,000. Don't quote me. Yes, that's not an exact number, but with benefits, I mean, it depends on their health insurance package. That's a huge cost if they have family as opposed to a buyout. I don't know the exact rate off that, but it's typically a teaching position that's right around $100,000.
So I want to clarify a few things. I didn't come up with numbers off the top of my head, and I think there's an assumption that I did. So I sent our ST3s for the last 3 years to NICET, who sent them to Albany for a budget analysis, which is where I got the figures that I shared at the last board meeting. In 2021, 2022, we had a surplus of $484,000, which is money that we didn't expend because Erin does a great job. This is not, I think she does a great job with her budgeting, and when we are told as a staff that there's budget issues, I think we all try to dial back, we look at different things. So we had $484,000 in surplus budget in 2021, 2022, $567,000 to 22, 23. Over $225,000 to 23, 24. And based on the trends and the budget reports that we sent in, that is where I received the $400,000 is the estimated surplus.
Hey, Donna, can I just interject a
Yeah.
little bit? So during that time frame, we also received a significant amount of federal stimulus funding that is now gone.
Okay.
So that plays a big role in that surplus as well. So just to consider that.
Yep,
So that is now,
And
that's
that-
now gone.
not in
So-
the report that we received.
That is all
it was
factored
coded.
into, yes.
And I think that that's where our frustration is that I've sat at board meetings where we have moved surplus money. 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 in September and October. We could go to the board meetings and we've moved them from unrestricted to get under that 4%. And put them in capital project or transportation right? And now you can't touch that money. That money is earmarked for that thing only. And when we're looking at some programs that are well valued and well loved. I said it last time is that I don't want us to spend $1 million on our savings accounts. That would be irresponsible. I understand that. But I am saying before we cut and lose good people and lose programs. Instead of looking at them as like an afterthought, well, they were a grant and now they're not important. That clearly they were important, they became important to the community. Finding a way to use some of that reserve money to save these teaching positions. And save these programs. We've got grants that we're looking at. I'm working on some I'm part of writing some of this and getting this information. And so I know we're trying really, really hard. And I know that budgets, and we're all worried about budget cuts and state budgets and federal budgets. But I want to reiterate, like, 1 year gap to save these teaching positions and save these things. I don't want us to empty $1 million. You know, if we're on track at 400 or even 200, it's up, then the budget analysis and that's half the programs that we're slated to cut. If we have 200 at the end of the year. And so, but I really worry that, you know, we are gonna lose good people. We're already losing good people. There's resignations on this board and it's gonna continue. We're already losing good people. So I do wanna reiterate, I think we can save a good portion of this year. I really do. Based on this budget. But I also wanna kind of go back to, Buddy said, you know, we asked staff and teachers but the GBEA asked, and we were told April 8th, no. That we weren't gonna be allowed to have conversation about budget, that it wasn't our place. We sent the request, we were told no, when we heard these things were happening, let us help troubleshoot, let us help look at things, what can we do, and we were told no.
I think we're on 2 different pages here,
Maybe,
2 different pages.
if
When
possible.
when I said that, I was referring to the staff and faculty going to their administration of what they need and what they do. Then the administration goes to us
Okay.
with the response, because there is, you know, I hate saying it, but there is an order.
Yeah.
And if we decide not to follow that order anymore, it's gonna be chaos. You don't see any other school district that has their union sit into their negotiations when it comes to budget. There's not one. I've called many, just to double check. I have no opposition, none of these board does. We expect that the faculty and the GBEA bring it to the administration of what their wants, needs are, and the administration brings it to us and says, you know, this is what they're looking for. Brian has done that, he has done that, Sarah has done that. That is where I'm saying, as far as your letter wanting to be set at the table of the budget.
No, that was not the email that is what came across, I apologize. We wanted to sit down and brainstorm ideas and just say like these feel like, because we are just 2 people out of 80 of our union and there's another union. And people come to us with ideas and they come to us and they come to us and they come to us. There's a lot of chatter that happens that they come to us. We wanted to bring those ideas to a round table discussion, and I guess maybe that would have been a better phrase to use.
Saying that's where we took it different, and that's where, you know, we gotta have the open communication. The way we looked at it was you guys, the union wanted to sit at the table with the.
No.
administration.
Well,
We wanted to brainstorm.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things that we've talked about, and I've talked with the board about. So that going forward in future budget seasons, ensuring that there is an opportunity early in the season for board and all of the units in the organization to get together. For Aaron to go through and share, okay, here are the contractual increases so that we can project what those look like. Here's what our anticipated foundation aid will be like next year. Here's our anticipated health insurance premium. I mean, remember, last year we were having this discussion because we had a 24% health insurance premium increase. And this year we have a 3% health. So every year there's something different to look at. And then to your point, the opportunity for you to take that back to brainstorm, and then to Buddy's point, to bring that back through the chain of command through your principals to make recommendations. And again, that in many ways, I think to some, not just sitting at the table doesn't happen, but the conversations happen. And we have those offline conversations. I think we can be more intentional about it. And I think that would probably alleviate the feeling or sentiment that you're not being communicated with / involved in those decisions.
Just to clarify a little bit too, it wasn't just saying no, it's a little more complicated than that. If you asked to get the whole board together, which subject to open meetings law, we were only a week away from having that meeting on the 8th anyways. So that's why it was suggested to wait till the 8th. We couldn't get everybody together and really plan for that. So we couldn't just get together off the record, we're subject to open.
Has it been discussed, like, let's just say, for example, the building trades for half a day? Has that been, no, I didn't know scheduling it would. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, just wondered if it was discussed.
It's important to say that budget has impact us. And, I know you're frustrated, but so are we. And it is our, like, I'm elected in this position to defend my members and their positions. That's my job, and so I think that finding solutions and being part of a solution is something that, you know, we wanna be able to offer. And I don't know that it necessarily needs to be adversarial, but it feels very adversarial. It feels, that, that what we've had to say hasn't mattered. And that it's fallen on deaf ears, and I think that's where some of the frustration comes from. And that, you know, we are 80 strong in this building, and, we are professionals, and we wanna care for each other, we wanna make sure everybody's jobs are safe, we wanna make sure everybody has what they need to do their job well. And so I think that is part of our frustration, is that we're seeing our own go, and we're seeing really people that are really valuable to us, really valuable to the community. And that the kids, the students that are gonna be impacted, it's bigger than that. And I still believe that we can find a way to save a portion of these programs this year, and then work together. I will sit on conference calls with Terry for hours if I have to, and if you've ever been on the other end of one of those, they are for hours, and you know, I think that many of us would, like, if you know, we're applying for this grant because we're trying to stay positioned, we will do that. And you know, I just think that we're not, I don't know what the words I'm trying to come up with. Yeah, got a written word. I think, I really just think that we just wanna make sure that we're being heard, that we do have ideas, we do have things that we would like to bring to you. We think that it is a mistake to cut from the programs you're cutting. I think it's gonna affect us. We talk about students wanting to be here. Some of the things that are gonna be affected are some of the reasons these kids wanna be here. And I think that that's important to look at.
Well, I think, you know, as board voice has definitely been heard. It's not just as a board member, but as a community member. I mean, I don't know anybody that's out in the community more than me, being in my job position. You know, we hear it, we hear the union side, we hear the teacher side, we hear the stakeholder side. 100%. I grew up with one of the guys, this was my brainchild. I considered of this program, you know, I'm really against it, and the other one that's losing a job, who graduated with my daughter, played sports with my daughter. So it's, you know, it's personal to me too. I understand it's personal to the union, but it's just as personal to me. But there's decisions that have to be made, and it's tough decisions that are made, and when it's brought to us as from the administration and the faculty, that this is gonna hurt the least and make the most sense. We have to do it. I think we should be responsible for our stakeholders.
And honestly, Donna, I've also volunteered to help with this grant writing. My time volunteer. I've actually gone to the website myself physically and looked for grants that we could be applying for. So the board is also doing everything we can to try to preserve as many positions as possible. And so I like the idea of it being a gap year, but there's nothing stating that it is a gap year. And when I look at the budget, I still feel that we have a $300,000 risk in the revenue that is not secured. So if that revenue does not come in that we're planning on, and we add more to it, so now we're using 500,000 of our fund balance. And then next year, when we have the same type of gap that happens, then what we do, we don't have anything to rely on. So I feel like there's, I would love to believe it's just a gap year, but I feel like there's too much of a risk in our budget today to not try to take some action to close the gap as much as possible. So I don't want to, like, the board here, we're really trying, we're looking at everything, and I personally spend a lot of time trying to.
I look at it. You know, and go through and we put those programs back in this year and say that it's a gap year and then to Janie's point, next year comes along and or later this year comes along and we don't have that revenue. Now we're looking like what, about the Richburg going through. Looking at 22 positions versus 4, and that's why I just don't see any way around this. I mean, we could save those programs, but others would have to go, and now you're fighting for them. It's a never ending cycle.
Good there, Aaron?
Yeah, if there are any other
Anything else?
questions, concerns?
All right. Budget vote and election of the Board of Education members will be held Tuesday, May 29th, 2025, 12 noon at 8 p.m. It will continue and Shelter residents vote at the Angel Green Hall and Belmont residents vote at the UCS School Vestibule. All ballots will be open starting at 8 p.m. Residents will vote on the 2025-26 school budget, propositions for the purchase of a 172 passenger school bus, use of transportation reserve funds, increased support for the Angelic and Belmont Town libraries, and vote on 2 board education member positions have been filed by Buddy Gordon, Max Louie, and Sean Kelly. And now I have Sarah Donlin to present the 2025-26 Code of Conduct.
So there are no changes from last year. It's the same document that we updated last May, so no changes at all.
Anyone have any questions for Mrs. Donlin on the code of conduct?
Student. Now, Dr. Schmidt.
So I sent out a copy of the school safety plan. Today, Tori and I asked Tori to be here today, thank you for being here, Tori. We worked on the appendices of that document to make sure that we were updating those pieces. And then what's left really is just the building level plan, which is in essence already completed, just needs to be updated from last year. So the hearing portion of this, the document's about 140 pages. I have a hard copy if anyone would like it, take a look through. But I want to provide an opportunity if there are questions on the document for the board itself. Go ahead, Tim.
I still think we're confusing district and building. District should only be 15 pages. 10, I mean, it's just the rough nuts and bolts.
Sure.
Versus that, I view that as more of the building level.
All of this will be adopted as one plan.
Okay.
And so, and to your
Then we're good, yes.
To your point, yes, it's
Yep.
adopted as one on an annual basis. And so this is the hearing.
Yep.
Next month with the June meeting, you guys will adopt this and yeah.
Gotcha, okay. I'm on the same page.
Good.
When you said the district is 140 pages, I'm like, whoa.
No.
Yeah.
It's,
Yep, no, we're good.
that's all I have.
We'll move on to. I need a motion to approve the minutes for the April 22nd, 25 regular board. No second. Any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Administrative reports. You guys all should have that here. I just see Brian drop the whole.
Yeah, I always like seeing the, I know Julia's here, I always like seeing the 5th graders doing flag folding things, so I hope my dad's not bothering. Thank you.
Yeah, Dave Fleming was very happy with like, to get over there, do that with them kids. Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Financial reports.
Oh. Go ahead. You're,
Yeah, it's just the budget. It's pretty cool.
Board committee reports, I skipped over there. Is there anything?
We haven't had any since last meeting, so.
Well, we did actually have a policy committee meeting and it's part of what we had a policy committee meeting, I think right before our meeting, and I probably forgot to maybe report out on it. But just so you guys are aware, you probably already reviewed them. So the wellness and the school safety plans, that's something that the policy committee reviewed. And essentially the wellness committee also reviewed it and brought it back to policy committee to make sure they didn't have anything to add, as well as the school safety plan, policy committee and school safety committee took a look at that. The other one was kind of just a standard recommendation that we update. And then we took a look at the policy number 7316, the use of personal technology, and we really have other policies or student handbook things that are already addressing that. So we're suggesting, the policy committee had suggested to the entire board to essentially eliminate that, to make sure that we're more consistent across the board. It was referencing blackberries and all kinds of fun things that existed back then. When was that?
1980.
I think it's actually 2003 or one. Yeah,
Okay, like 12.
it was a little outdated, but.
Berries and beavers.
I still got my little card ball.
Well, then, yeah, I put it into this policy, but that was the only thing I got.
One question for the policy committee, and it might be my bad, I don't know. Where did we come up with the student, board member? Where are we at on that?
that has come through. The committee already has been approved, policy has been approved. Sarah is in the process of putting that policy into action, conducting that process.
I guess that was.
Was that your question? Policy's been approved.
I knew
And
that.
so Sarah started that process already.
Later this month, I'm gonna meet with all the 9th through 11th graders, tell them about the opportunity and hopefully get some letters of interest. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, I need a motion to approve the seeker's declaration for capital outlay.
All motions.
John with the motion. Name, speech, and name. Any questions, comments, concerns with that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we have a consent agenda, and then there's a six, or there's a C. That is six.
It's just, it's amending. She's amending.
Oh, all right. You'll see on your addendum that there's a amendment, and then there's a.
These are separate motions.
Yeah.
There are several motions.
Yes, you know. So B and C are separate motions too. A is the consent agenda. All right, there, and then you got B and C.
Oh, okay. I need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
All motion.
So. Bill. Any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the memorandum of commitment for the Allegheny Council of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse. Motion. Max with the motion.
I'll second.
Sean with the second. Any questions, comments, concerns on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
Three abstain. One abstention. Board. Oh. I need a motion to approve the Healthy Kids Program agreement.
All motion.
Cheryl with the motion, one second, Max with the second. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Who's that?
Sean Max. There's no motion on that, that's why I did that. Yeah. That's why I was.
I did.
Oh, forgot to step.
Oh, that's why you're confused, yeah.
You're perfect in my eyes, Pam. It's just I made a mistake. It's me. It's all me. Anybody have, or all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Oh, personal action items, I need a motion to approve interim director of special education. CSE, CSE, chairperson.
That was not us, yeah.
Well, I was great.
That was a buddy Aaron.
We had Tim with the motion. James with the second. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? I'll abstain, Pam. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Connor Mortaway. Back to the motion. Jeannie in the second. Any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Raina Height.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll find it.
And with motion, no, second, any questions, comments, concerns, but all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Well, I'll swing over to your addendum. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Dylan Harrington. That's James, the motion. I'll second. Second. Any questions, comments, concerns with that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Carla Long.
motion.
Jamie with the motion, I'll second. Jamie, Max with the second. Any questions, comments with Carla? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Information and discussion on steal your thunder here for a second. I'd like to present a award to Mr. Timothy Hand on behalf of New York State Board Association. He received a board lifetime achievement of Tennessee Valley. Conferring that over 500 points he's accumulated in his years. Like I
Say go towards retirement.
this check. Yep, the check that says you can come to the convention. Congratulations. Yeah, borrow one.
Yeah. He told me ahead of time. I guess they know.
The information discussion, I have a self-explanatory, the budget vote is the 20th. We're meeting at 8:30 in the meeting, or in the in-office conference room to approve the budget at that point. If there are other action items, we will add things to the budget. Budget, that vote, that meeting. So, and the next meeting is the 10th. Is there any other thoughts?
I did not put the board meeting dates for next year on this. I didn't know if we talked and you guys were good with those dates, so I will put it on the 20th. If you guys are all good with the dates. Do you have any conflicts? No, it's like, want me to send it back again?
Yeah,
tomorrow?
that's what it is.
Okay.
I've been like.
Well, the board dates, and then I will do the agenda dates of the week before, so I'll send you both, and then we'll do the sign up or whatever. And the other thing, if you guys start thinking about your reorg meeting, gotta be between from July 1st and 15th.
And, but I saw you, I think you or Pam or somebody had a conversation with Barb. That Board of Elections,
We had a letter from Mark,
yeah,
that basically just told us what we knew, that she sent in an email about that, to look, that we're no longer using the polling sites, they're no longer using our polling site. For voting,
oh, they're not,
they're not, no,
where did they go?
they're going to, this church,
Oh, really?
the old Methodist church, are gonna use that, because it's right next to their location.
Meeting room up back.
Mhm.
I was thinking more of along the lines of the switch to the one.
That is a reorg conversation.
Yeah.
Yep, so Pam has it on the agenda already, I believe, from our discussion earlier.
I saw something you had forwarded, it says, well, we need to schedule a meeting and.
Yep.
So typically, I get to that reorg at our retreat,
Yes,
Usually.
so make sure you guys have dates, get some dates that will work between them. That's the first and
15th, yeah, I see something.
and then, any suggestions for where we'd like to have it? Obviously, it's gonna have to be something local, which we all decided to do anyway. Just so that it doesn't really be too late now to try to get it somewhere, so. So any suggestions you have, just shoot to Pam or myself or.
That's why I do my here the 14th and 15th, so if you guys pick those dates. My deputy will have.
of July.
Yes.
Try to not cut it that close.
And you want us to plan them for that?
Is that what you were asking?
No, I really.
Is there anything else for the good of order? Can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion. James, the motion, John, second. And all in favor?
Aye.
7:23 p.m.
Yeah.
Thank you. On behalf of the, WI program, thank you for the facility. It was awesome.
Yeah.